Issue 263 Reboot. So, Rotor got thrown at Sonic, when it would have been not idiotic if the monster just kept preventing Rotor from swimming to safety. I thought I'd just keep holding them still. Since when did Sonic get free? Why would he not be held still anymore? To get attacked by the monster's hands instead of Sonic going werehog like I thought he would. Pearly warns Amy, and out of nowhere, when Coral begs a spirit for help, this time it actually apologizes to her for the delay and expects its excuse to make sense. The dark powers hindering it is supposed to be an excuse. Huh? Why is it able to talk to her at all then? It makes sense if I was told that the spirit is busy fighting dark guy monsters most of the time, and it just now had free time. But if it was doing that, it would have been actually doing something, and gods don't do that in fantasy series. Out of nowhere, Chaos shows up, and Rotor and Sonic get bubble shields. Why couldn't the air charms have summoned those? That was obvious. Well, Chaos is an established part of the Sonic series already, so he's not really a Deus Ex Machina. It's sudden that he showed up, but not illogical. Okay, so Tikal was the spirit? Why wasn't she simply called Tikal? I'm pretty sure she would prefer that. She would have told her to call her Tikal a long time ago. I guess she doesn't commune with the spirits very much, even though she said that was what the Mystic Melody was capable of doing. So the spirits were literal? She was praying to ghosts? Chaos goes to wrestle with the monster. I should have been told that he was fighting monsters all day, and that's how he was contributing. Chaos hits the monster with the ocean, and Rotor figures out that the reason the oceans didn't drain when the world broke apart was that Chaos was controlling it all. Sonic just tells him to geek out later. That's not geeking out, that's filling in a gigantic plot hole that's been the case for a while. How is it geeky to expect even the most basic of logic and stories? Everyone wants that. And I always assumed Tikal would tell them this, like someone associated with Chaos. I didn't think someone would come to the conclusion on their own, and, well, what if he's wrong? We'll never know. It's just an assumption. Sonic says he helped Chaos with a thing once. No, he didn't. When did he ever help him, other than making him not evil anymore by pummeling him? Sonic uses Chaos's showing up as proof that Coral isn't a lousy priestess. But I think anyone's prayers would have been answered if Chaos was in the business of fighting monsters for fun. Can't anybody play the Mystic Melody? And if it can commune with spirits, then anybody could make her show up. Also, if he's a protector of the Chow, why didn't he go show up when the Chow were being threatened instead of appearing here? We could have been told he was only showing up where Chow were being threatened. He wouldn't have felt like a Deus Ex Machina nearly as much to anybody if he showed up when the Chow were being threatened earlier. Because it would immediately make sense. He's a protector of the Chow. And it would foreshadow him protecting Sonic later on. He could have been sent towards Sonic afterwards by Pearly. Amy is told by a guard that she's needed here, and she agrees instead of protesting that she doesn't need an escort. That was out of character instead of her going to help Sonic already. But it is really in character for her to have faith in Sonic. It'd just be more loyal of her to choose to protect Sonic instead. Aquarius is a hero chaos Chow. Oh, that makes sense. I never thought we'd see that in a comic. Coral's told that she saved her. That doesn't explain why she took so long to reincarnate. Tikal says that if a Chow is cared for really well, it'll evolve into an immortal Chow. I'm still not being told why it took too long to reincarnate. It seems to have only happened to make her upset. She would have gotten in trouble anyways, because she would have been blamed for the monsters showing up. But still, you don't change the rules of the games when you're all about being too faithful to them just to cause drama. That's just mean. I guess it's part of the originality of the reboot that they don't need to give a Chow one of every animal to make it a Chaos Chow, because there's no mention of that. And Coral should have, been told by Tikal that's always the case, that a Chaos Chow takes forever to finish reincarnating. Maybe this is the first Chaos Chow they've ever heard of, ever. And 2, should have explained at some point that the reason she thinks Aquarius can restore the city shield is that Chow always had chaos energy in them. Because a Chow, you'd expect it to have like the intelligence of a dog or cat. So how would it even know that the heroes want it to restore the city's shield in particular, instead of just being there and not knowing what they want it to do? trust a child to be smart enough to understand. I could understand if it was looking at the dark eye monsters, and of course it would want them to go away. So its will would be translated to strengthening the mystic melody as it was being played. Like, it could be shown camera footage of the dark eye monsters fighting. She thinks that she'll need Pearly's help. I thought the rites could be performed by only one person at a time and didn't require multiple. She should explain that if the same rite is performed by multiple people, it'll amplify the rite's power. But even then, that sounds like it could get extremely broken fast, because you could have a ton of people doing one rite at once. At least an artifact is balanced. At that point, why is there just one person doing the rites? I hope I'm not told that more people could amplify the rites if that's how it works. Because if that's how it works, then it's the city's own stupid fault that the force field vanished, because it didn't have everyone do the rite all at the same time. Or maybe it's just that she's talking about a rite that needs more than one person. I guess it makes sense that it would need more than one person, because she thinks it's harder to restore a force field from nothing. Unfortunately, Tikal is humanized, saying that she'd be honored to join them. And finally, she tells her to call her Tikal, and she looks normal. It is interesting to see Tikal like this, instead of like STC Tikal. But how long has she been a priestess? Like, why did she even start communing with her in the first place? I guess because she was desperate to make the monsters stop showing up. She must have very recently started talking to Tikal then, if she only just now told her name. Why did Razor call beloved little sister, or at least little sister figure, a twerp? He's been nothing but nice to her before, that was out of character. The heroes keep hitting the monster uninterestingly, and finally, the rite is done. And I guess all the monsters got lasered to death at once. Apparently the Mystic Melody can do that too, even though it wasn't designed with the monsters in mind. I guess it's normally meant to be used against invading soldiers. Sonic thanks Chaos and wishes he could stay around for a celebrity appearance. He should. It would be interesting to see him be reacted to by civilians in a way other than fear. To actually address the fact that he's good now. Rotor then talks to a tablet, saying that he ran the city's environmental records against their own, and compared water samples, so it's taking advantage of being a genius in a new way. It says that their spike in pollution is coming from the 2 crashed egg carriers. Wait! What, the ones from all the way back in SA1? I guess the heroes were always too busy doing other things to think to salvage the egg carriers for valuable materials, and stop pollution like they're supposed to. Tons of ships stay underwater today. But this is a world with futuristic technology, and the freedom fighters need all the materials they can get. And more importantly, I'm sure Eggman would have salvaged those egg carriers a long time ago to get materials out of them for free. He'd be able to do that just fine. He could make a warp ring around them. Eggman made checkpoints in SCC that created portals just fine. And they could even be carried around. This was a stupid explanation for the pollution. We could have simply been told that there was an oil leak somewhere, thanks to Eggman, like I assumed, because that keep things simple. Instead, a continuity error with the games is created. Again, it's not like in the Reboot universe, SC1 happened right before Unleashed. Anyways, Rotor says that the ocean currents sent it all to the city. Fortunately, Sonic is surprisingly mature enough to take responsibility for the fact that the first aircraft crashed because of him. Even though he doesn't have to, because he just did what he had to do, and it was Eggman's fault for making it. But him and Amy feeling guilty is good because they're supposed to be heroes. Anyways, Amy promises to help them with the cleanup. That would be a heroic thing for them to do, to establish that they're supposed to be rooted for. But the Queen's out of character from her bitch self because she stupidly declines. She, for once, is a good person, saying that the heroes have already done so much for them. This is such a sudden shift from her being unlikable that it's not going to trick me into liking her now. It's like she's a different person. I guess she's supposed to always be like this. But if this is the last time I'm going to see her, I still don't really like her. Well, to be fair, I'd rather the heroes be able to focus on bringing the world back together, if only to stop the monsters. They have better things to do than help with the cleanup, because they have to fight Eggman all the time. I'd rather them help civilians than waste time destroying stuff of Eggman's when he'll just rebuild them anyways. The Queen admits she was wrong and brings Coral back to her old job. I still hate these two. This is just them being how they were supposed to be from the start. Average is not fantastic. And I like that she acknowledged Chaos. And it's actually really amusing how he's so much taller than everybody else. Takal then says that she can only manifest near points of magical power. Huh? I've heard that that's the case for Star Wars Force Ghosts too. If I hadn't seen a video, I wouldn't have known that. Knowing about this does help me accept this because I can see the source of inspiration. But I'm not told that Pumpkin Hill and Sandopolis are places of great magical power, and they have ghosts. They seem no different than any other place. It's not like they're mind-bendingly weird from magic overflow, like as weird looking as the Sonic CD level. And wait a minute. Oh, I guess the reason this place is a point of magical power is because of all the magical chow around, and the magic rings mentioned earlier. Wouldn't Sonic's magical power super speed make any point he's at a magical power point? What about Knuckles? Is he not powerful? What about Shadow? She could always appear to him. I guess she can always appear to them. Actually, trying to explain why she's not around very often is even more confusing than not explaining it at all and letting us assume that she's usually busy having fun in the afterlife. Like we always assumed. That's simpler, it makes more sense. She should have simply explained that she can only manifest near either the Master Emerald or this place. Because this place has so many Chow and therefore 10 has energy combined. I guess that makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is that she can only appear for a limited amount of time. As she says, while I have time. If you're a magical ghost who can go to Mobius at will, why can't you stay there for as long as you want? Even if it's at a magical point only. What is actually stopping her from just going back to a place right after she's sent back? Knuckles could invite her to social situations and hang out with her all she wants. Like, more importantly, Relic could do that. It would be annoying to them that she'd have to constantly warp back after being sent away, but I don't think that would stop Relic. She explains that Dark Gaia energy is blocking her, as the convenient, all-purpose evil energy can do because it knows she's good, apparently, when Dark Gaia has no reason to even know about her. She's not like Gaia. She reveals that Knuckles is out looking for Chip right now to drive Dark Gaia back. When I first read this issue, I had already read all the arc where Knuckles was doing that, because of the timeline I was following. I think the timeline is kind of wrong here. Takal reveals that she can be summoned by the Mystic Melody at any time, so they could just play that over and over. Coral somehow didn't have the chance to thank her in all this time, and Amy comforts her, saying that she thinks she knows. Then she arbitrarily says she'll only get to see her again when she gets her strength back, when she could just play the Mystic Melody again. Wow. Then Coral reveals a bit of a problem. She says that she's never seen anyone but Amy learn the Mystic Melody so fast. And Amy says she's gifted. So that's another creator's pet moment for Amy. I'm willing to bet she'll have a lot more of those than Sally ever did. And that's baffling because Sally I can understand respecting. She's a dignified princess who's capable and intelligent. Amy Rose is a different story. It makes sense to think of it as good that she knows how to do something other than just swing a hammer. But you could have some other character learn the Mystic Melody. Like Rotor. Rotor's in desperate need of something to make him a little bit more interesting. Amy has more of a personality than Rotor does. This wouldn't be standing out so badly if you were told ahead of time that Amy's a great flute player in her spare time. If I had been told that a long time ago, it'd be a Chekhov's gun resulting from a harmless hobby of hers that was made to make her more interesting. There's nothing wrong with the character having a hobby all of a sudden. I wouldn't call it favoritism if it turned out one of the Destructix members liked chess. If I had been told she was good at playing the flute issues earlier in the passing, I'd just be thinking, well, that's interesting, it adds to her character. And then I'd be impressed when it came back. I would have had the time to get used to the idea that Amy can play the flute, and so it would make sense coming up again. But even then, the fact that she'd pick up and learn a melody the instant she's needed to play for the first time is something that'd be only possible for someone born with perfect pitch. Apparently, Amy has perfect pitch. That's different from Boom Amy, that's for sure. I mean, we've never been told she doesn't have perfect pitch, outside of Sonic Boom where she's bad at singing. Rotor's a genius. I could probably buy him being a musical prodigy better. Then Rotor's asked if he's ready to finally leave this place, and he reveals that the Chow are splashing around in a lake of rings. And Razor says they use them all the time, and they're common. We should be told that rings spawn a lot more in magical places, and a place with tons of chow would have more magic in it. But so would the location of the Master Emeralds. Rings should be common there too. I guess that's not the logic, or else it'd be impossible to believe the heroes wouldn't have already found tons of rings in Angel Island. Why is this place so special? Why would they ever go zone running instead of just going to Angel Island? I can't imagine any other collection of zones being at a magical enough place to spawn rings than Angel Island, which has a Master Emerald in it. It would be worth the trip up there. Green Hill Zone doesn't have a Master Emerald in it, so why does it have rings? I mean, the focus on Chow for it does make sense because Chow are associated with Chaos the Water God, and they look like water droplets in shape, and they can be taught to swim. But still, we've seen Chow before, and I was always under the impression that every place on Mobius was crazy about Chow, that Chow were the house pet of Mobius. So this isn't a really creative and impressive way to world build a place, because you'd assume every place would have a ton of Chow as house pets. Rotor references that they go run through zones to get rings normally, but Razor shouldn't go because he's an idiot. I can't believe the writer would think we'd want to see Razor again. He puts all those rings he bumbled into without earning them into a container he just revealed he had that's shaped like a wisp container. We didn't see him carry that container all the way here. We didn't see him carrying that container when he first met Razor. I guess the container came from Meropis. He says that they won't have to restock the Sky Patrol's engines for quite a while, in an attempt to make this whole arc feel worth it. That didn't work, because I don't think they needed that. And Razor somehow still thinks their temple isn't connected to saving the planet. He better be wrong about that, or the whole arc would have been an inexcusable waste of time. There's a reason I didn't believe Razor when he said the temple wasn't the Gaia Temple, because it was common sense to have it be a Gaia Temple. Somehow I expected to believe that the Mystic Melody will narrow their search down to a few miles instead of a few continents. Huh? What? If that's the case, we still didn't need a whole arc for this. Rotor should have just had a chaos detector at home. And we could have been told that he had this for some time and he spent months building it. I get the logic that you want to have a whole arc dedicated to the heroes getting a chaos detector. But this arc sucked, so it wasn't worth it. And there's no reason they couldn't have learned the Mystic Melody and had a Gaia Temple here. Our time is wasted as Amy's sweet to Coral holding her hands and hugging her, but Sonic and Razor interact as if I'm supposed to take Razor seriously as a worthwhile addition to the cast. He grabbed Sonic, being mean to him at one point. I'm still baffled that he exists. Then we see a horrible looking character with a meditation stance in a rainforest, speaking too vaguely and telling his friend that he's made progress, and yet he's still burning at his core. The guy says all his training has given him focus, but not a purpose. Who talks like this? And it's Mighty, who says he needs to do something with his power. First of all, while I'm glad to see him and Ray again, and I like that Ray's got a much better design and is roasting marshmallows, Mighty would have known about his power from the start. There's no excuse for him not knowing about his super strength since he was 3 or something, from not knowing his own strength, right? Because Bunny doesn't know her own strength sometimes. I guess instead I'm supposed to assume that all he trained in was fighting skills, like dodging attacks correctly, and he already knew about his super strength. It's so distracting to me that the only reason Mighty and Ray were separate from the Chaotix to make the audience happy to see them again was that they aren't with the Chaotix in the video games, so the writer's bias overtook him again, instead of him confirming to the standard that they're always with the Chaotix normally. We didn't need to have them be separated from them for a long time. And the text box asks if they'll be Sonic's foes when they meet him again. Text boxes shouldn't try to mislead the audience. I'm assuming they're still good guys, but if they're not, there should be a good explanation for it. If the audience is to be misled, it should be naturally because of stuff that happens in the story, not because the text box lies to you when it shouldn't. That's just a cheap, easy way of manipulating the audience. I'm assuming they're still good guys. How would they ever have found this guy if he's in a rainforest all the time? Wouldn't he be disconnected from the internet and stuff? That should be explained. I'm actually assuming that Mighty found out about this guy from the internet, because what other explanation could there be? I actually skipped all of this worthless crap on the first read until I got to Eggman. I obviously don't want any focus on characters that look horrible and have no actual reason to be opposed to the heroes getting the emerald. This shit is why roboticization was invented. At least it's justified that Robians look bad because Eggman wants them to look menacing, and it's justified that they're supporting Eggman because the robots now. Even realistic looking animals look better than this. Maybe I'll read this shit in the editing. I'll put text up if there's anything to comment on. Like, plot holes. Eggman at least explains that the reason he took forever to find out that Sally stole his files in the Death Egg was that he was stuck on the other side of the planet at the time. Eggman's told they found an emerald, and he says confusingly to keep it there because he wants it to be bait. He should have just said it'll be bait as his first sentence. If he wants the emerald so bad, why doesn't he just go bring it to himself? He can make a fake emerald and put it there and use that as bait. If Tails can make a fake emerald and SC2 is canon to this, then why can't Eggman do the same thing? That character looks awful. This story's worthless. The first story was by Flynn and was about Chaos showing up to beat the monster with the heroes' help. Because I guess Sonic can't just spin dash straight through it at Sonic speed for some reason, or boost through it. And when the Mystic Melody gets played, the magical song destroys all the monsters in the city. Well, I'm sure Sonic Spin Dash could have done that. But to be fair, he's usually slowed down by water, but that doesn't stop him from beating Badniks in one hit when underwater in Labyrinth Zone, so... But I guess he's only beating them because of the sharp spines. They aren't as effective, but they don't have to be as fast. If these monsters are organic, they would be, if anything, even more vulnerable to his sharp spines. Anyways, the heroes finally get to leave this place thanks to Chaos. Also, Rotor got rings for the Sky Patrol from a pond, and I'm expected to believe the Mystic Melody will let the heroes narrow down where exactly to go to a few spots instead of continents. They could have just had a Chaos Energy Detector from the start. This arc didn't need to happen. It sucked, so it wasn't worth earning it. It's hard for me to believe. Is this really not a Gaia Temple location? After all that time? Was I supposed to believe the Mystic Melody's random ability to do this made all of this arc worth it? I guess that'll cut down all the time spent trying to find the other temples because they could play it and instantly locate them. If that's true, there's no excuse for them not instantly running to each temple one after the other. Like, it's a magical song, you'd think. If it's not powerful enough to locate all of them at once from anywhere on the globe, we just learned that multiple people could do one right and amplify its power. Can't Amy get Coral and a whole bunch of other people to play the Mystic Melody with her? And then she'd find out where all the temples are in a second? What an idiot. Instead of a horrible arc with awful, unlikable idiots that wasn't worth it. We could have just had the heroes know the locations of the temple from the start, like would have been logical. I guess this story was good. Chaos did something useful, which is more interesting than Sonic Spin Dashing. Chaos did something useful, a plot hole was filled. But I'm baffled. Is this really not the location of a Gaia Temple after all this time? What was Flynn thinking? Granted, he didn't know ahead of time that the reboot would have this little issues to work with. But in retrospect, it really wasn't excusable that it wasted these issues. The second story is completely worthless. Horrible looking bad guys throw a tantrum because Sally got an emerald instead of liking her and only working for Eggman reluctantly. How? This is worse than the Badnik Repair Squad and SDC having stories to themselves. Because at least they did something. There was an actual plot in those stories. It made sense that Eggman would want his Badniks repaired instead of keeping the materials there for the heroes to grab. So it made Eggman look smart. There's a reason I didn't expect to see Eggman's reaction to the emerald being taken. There's a reason I thought this cave arc was over. This story could have been about anything else. Right after this is going to be my review on the Sonic Free Comic Book Day 2014 issue. It was released a while before this, but the reason I waited until now was that it takes place in the Sky Patrol with Sonic and Sally in the same place together. So it has to take place at least as early as this. Because both of their missions are done.